The Architect's Judgment, The Unlikely Alliance. Prologue, The Silent Scythe. The galaxy held its breath. Not a dramatic gasp, not a fearful whimper, but a silent, chilling stillness that permeated the void between stars. It was the stillness of prey awaiting the predator, the stillness of a condemned soul before the executioner. The architect was judging. No one knew precisely what the architect was. Theories abounded, whispered in hushed tones in the grand halls of the Galactic Empire and scratched into dusty datapads on forgotten, backwater planets. Some claimed it was a sentient cosmic phenomenon, a being of pure energy older than the universe itself. Others believed it was a self-replicating algorithm left by a long-dead civilization, tasked with weeding out species deemed unfit for the galactic stage. Still others, the fringe mystics and the superstitious nomads, spoke of a divine force, a cosmic gardener pruning the overgrown vines of sentient life. Regardless of its true nature, the architect's actions were undeniable. One by one, systems fell silent. Not through war, not through natural disasters, but through trials. Bizarre, unpredictable, and lethal trials that defied all known laws of physics and challenged the very fabric of existence. Star systems were suddenly enveloped in pocket dimensions, forced to navigate impossible geometries or solve riddles whispered on the solar winds. Planets were subjected to sudden and catastrophic environmental shifts, testing the limits of adaptation. And sometimes, most cruelly, species were forced to make horrific choices, to sacrifice one portion of their population to ensure the survival of the rest. The Galactic Empire, the dominant power in the galaxy for millennia, found itself utterly unprepared. Their vast fleets, their meticulously planned strategies, their unwavering belief in order and control, all were rendered useless in the face of the architect's capricious judgment. Entire armadas vanished without a trace, sucked into dimensional rifts or vaporized by unknown energies. Their perfectly structured society, built on rigid hierarchies and unquestioning obedience, crumbled under the weight of fear and uncertainty. They were drowning in chaos, and desperately searching for a lifeline. Little did they know, that lifeline was being woven on the fringes of their meticulously controlled galaxy, by a coalition as unlikely as it was audacious. A coalition led by a team of humans, a species long dismissed as insignificant, a footnote in the grand history of the cosmos. Humans, who had survived chaos countless times before, and were about to do so again. Part 1, The Human Equation. Captain Eva Rostova stood on the bridge of the Stardust Drifter, a battered but surprisingly resilient freighter that had seen better days, and worse. The flickering holographic displays cast an eerie glow on her weathered face, highlighting the lines etched by worry and sleeplessness. Around her, the crew of the Stardust Drifter worked with practiced efficiency, a symphony of controlled panic masked by ingrained routine. Jump calculations complete, Captain, Lieutenant Jian announced, his voice calm despite the grim news flashing across his console. We're clear to jump to the Kepler 186F system. Eva nodded, her gaze fixed on the swirling nebula projected on the main view screen. Kepler 186F. Another system under the architect's shadow, another desperate plea for assistance from a crumbling world. Execute jump sequence, she ordered, her voice firm despite the knot of dread tightening in her stomach. Humanity had always been a species of survivors. From their turbulent origins on a single, fragile planet, they had clawed their way to the stars, enduring famines, wars, and plagues that would have extinguished lesser species. This history of adversity had forged a unique resilience, a desperate cunning, and a remarkable ability to improvise. Qualities that the Galactic Empire, with its millennia of peace and structured order, had long forgotten. Eva herself was a product of this environment. Born on a marginal colony world ravaged by ecological collapse, she had learned to fight for survival from a young age. She was a master strategist, a skilled pilot, and a natural leader, but her greatest strength lay in her ability to think outside the box, to find solutions where others saw only dead ends. Her crew reflected this diversity. Jian, the stoic and brilliant mathematician, had escaped a life of indentured servitude on a mining colony. Dr. Eris Thorne, the eccentric and brilliant xenobiologist, had been exiled from the Empire's prestigious research academies for his unorthodox theories. And then there was Maya, the enigmatic tech specialist, whose past was shrouded in mystery, but whose skills with archaic and forbidden technologies were invaluable. They were misfits, outcasts, and rebels. But they were also humanity's best hope. The Stardust Drifter plunged into hyperspace, leaving behind the familiar stars for the swirling chaos of the quantum realm. Eva leaned back in her command chair, closing her eyes for a moment. Sleep was a luxury she could rarely afford these days. "Captain," Jian's voice cut through her brief respite. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the Imperial flagship Emperor's Wrath." Eva's eyes snapped open. The Emperor's Wrath was the flag vessel of Grand Admiral Valerius, the supreme commander of the Imperial fleet. Contact with the Empire was usually a bureaucratic nightmare, filled with endless protocols and condescending lectures. This was different. Something was desperately wrong. "Patch them through," she ordered. The image of Grand Admiral Valerius, a tall, imposing figure clad in the immaculate white uniform of the Imperial Navy, flickered into existence on the main view screen. His face was grim, his eyes filled with a weariness that belied his authority. "Captain Rostova," he began, his voice surprisingly devoid of the usual imperial arrogance. "We require your immediate assistance." Eva raised an eyebrow, not bothering to hide her surprise. "With all due respect, Grand Admiral, I'm not sure what assistance a small freighter like mine can offer the might of the Imperial Navy." Valerius sighed, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of the galaxy. "The Kepler 186F system, it's facing a trial unlike anything we've encountered before. We've lost contact with our scouting parties. Our ships are unable to navigate the system. We suspect it involves something beyond our understanding." He paused, as if struggling to find the right words. "We've reviewed your records, Rostova. Your team's history of unconventional problem-solving. We believe you may be our only hope." Eva felt a shiver run down her spine. It was an impossible situation. They were a small team, facing a cosmic entity that had brought the Galactic Empire to its knees. But humanity had never backed down from a challenge, no matter how impossible. "We're listening, Grand Admiral," she said, her voice firm. "Tell us what you know." Part 2, The Whispers of the Empath. The Kepler 186F system was a nightmare. As the Stardust Drifter dropped out of hyperspace, they were greeted by a scene of utter chaos. The once verdant planet of Kepler 186F was now shrouded in a swirling vortex of energy, its surface racked by storms of unimaginable intensity. Fragments of shattered Imperial warships drifted aimlessly in orbit, silent testament to the architect's power. "What the hell is going on here?" Eris Thorne exclaimed, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and horror. "It's a dimensional distortion," Jian replied, his fingers flying across his console. "The architect is manipulating spacetime itself. Normal navigation is impossible." Eva felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. This was it. The ultimate test. "We need to find a way to navigate this mess," she said, her eyes scanning the chaotic scene. "Eris, what can you tell us about what's happening on the planet?" Thorne shook his head, his face pale. "I'm picking up strange energy signatures. Unnatural phenomena. It's as if the planet itself is alive, and it's in agony." Suddenly, a blaring alarm ripped through the bridge. "We're being hailed," Maya announced, her voice tight. "It's a communication from the planet's surface. But it's not using any known frequencies. Eva frowned. Can you decipher it? Maya nodded, her fingers flying across her console. I think so, it's telepathic. Emanating from a group calling themselves the Silent Chorus. The Silent Chorus. A small, isolated community of empathic telepaths who had lived on Kepler 186f for centuries, largely ignored by the Galactic Empire. They were physically frail and vulnerable, but their psychic abilities were unmatched. Patch them through, Eva ordered. A wave of raw emotion washed over the bridge, a cacophony of fear, despair, and desperate hope. It was overwhelming, almost unbearable. Quiet. Eva snapped, focusing her mind. We can't understand you if you're all talking at once. Focus on one voice. After a moment, a single voice emerged from the chaotic chorus, clear and calm. Greetings, travelers, the voice said, its tone soft but firm. I am Lyra, speaker for the Silent Chorus. We have been expecting you. Lyra was young, barely out of her teens, but her eyes held the wisdom of ages. She was small and frail, but her presence radiated an inner strength that belied her physical appearance. We understand you are facing a great challenge, Lyra continued. The architect's trial has thrown our world into chaos. But we believe we can help you navigate the storms. Eva raised an eyebrow. How? Lyra smiled, a faint but hopeful expression. We can sense the architect's intentions. We can feel the shifts in the dimensional fabric. We can guide you through the chaos, if you are willing to listen. Eva hesitated. Relying on telepathic guidance was a risky proposition. But they were running out of options. We're listening, Lyra, she said. Tell us what we need to do. Lyra explained that the architect's trial on Kepler 186f was designed to test the species' ability to adapt to unpredictable environmental changes. The planet was constantly shifting, its terrain morphing, its weather patterns fluctuating wildly. The only way to survive was to anticipate these changes and adapt accordingly. The empaths, with their ability to sense the subtle shifts in the planet's energy field, could predict these changes moments before they occurred. They could guide the Stardust Drifter through the storms, lead them to safe havens, and warn them of impending dangers. It was a risky gamble, but Eva knew they had no other choice. She agreed to Lyra's proposal, forming an unlikely alliance between the human crew of the Stardust Drifter and the empathic telepaths of Kepler 186f. Guided by Lyra's telepathic whispers, the Stardust Drifter began its perilous journey through the heart of the storm. The empath's guidance proved invaluable, allowing them to dodge falling debris, navigate treacherous energy fields, and avoid the worst of the weather. But the trial was far from over. The architect was constantly throwing new challenges at them, testing their limits, pushing them to the brink of destruction. Part 3, The Salvage King. As the Stardust Drifter navigated the chaotic landscape of Kepler 186f, they encountered another unlikely group of survivors, the scavengers of the asteroid belt. These were a hardy and resourceful people who had carved out a living by salvaging wreckage and repurposing discarded technology. They were often dismissed as pests by the Galactic Empire, but their ingenuity and resourcefulness were legendary. We're receiving a distress signal, Jian announced, his voice tense. It's coming from a group of scavengers caught in a dimensional anomaly. Eva hesitated. They were already stretched thin, struggling to survive. Rescuing the scavengers would put them at even greater risk. But Lyra's voice echoed in her mind. They can help us, Eva. They possess skills that we desperately need. Eva trusted Lyra's intuition. Plot a course to their location, she ordered. Let's see what these scavengers are all about. The scavengers' ship, the Rusty Bucket, was a cobbled-together monstrosity, a testament to their skills in jury-rigging and improvisation. Its captain, a grizzled old woman named Zara, greeted them with a wary but welcoming smile. "Welcome aboard the Rusty Bucket," Zara said, her voice raspy from years of breathing recycled air. "We're glad to see a friendly face. We thought we were goners for sure." Zara explained that they had stumbled upon a dimensional anomaly while salvaging wreckage from a destroyed Imperial warship. The anomaly had trapped them in a localized pocket dimension, where the laws of physics were constantly changing. "We've been trying to fix our hyperdrive, but it's like every time we get close, the damn thing changes its configuration," Zara said, her voice laced with frustration. "We need someone who can adapt to this ever-shifting reality." Eva turned to Maya, their resident tech specialist. "Can you help them?" Maya hesitated. "I can try," she said, "but these dimensional anomalies, they can be unpredictable. It's extremely dangerous." Zara shrugged. "We don't have much choice, do we?" Maya agreed to help, joining the scavengers on the Rusty Bucket. The two crews worked together, combining their skills and knowledge to try and repair the damaged hyperdrive. It was a chaotic and frustrating process. The dimensional anomaly was constantly changing the configuration of the hyperdrive, forcing them to adapt and improvise on the fly. Parts that fit one moment would be useless the next. Tools would suddenly vanish or transform into something completely different. But Maya and the scavengers persevered, fueled by their shared determination to survive. They scavenged parts from the wreckage of the destroyed warship, repurposed tools, and even used the anomaly itself to their advantage, manipulating the shifting reality to their benefit. Finally, after days of relentless work, they managed to repair the hyperdrive. The Rusty Bucket emerged from the dimensional anomaly, battered but functional. "You saved our lives," Zara said, her voice filled with gratitude. "We owe you one." Eva smiled. "We may need your help before this is over. We're trying to find a way to survive the architect's trial." Zara's eyes widened. "The architect? That's a suicide mission." "Maybe," Eva said. "But we're not giving up. And we believe that together, we might just have a chance." Zara considered Eva's words for a moment. Then, a grin spread across her weathered face. "All right," she said. "Count us in. We're not afraid of a little chaos. We live in it." The alliance between the Stardust Drifter and the Rusty Bucket was forged, adding the scavengers' ingenuity and resourcefulness to their growing coalition. Part 4, The Nomadic Wisdom. As the coalition navigated the architect's trial, they began to realize that the answers they sought were not to be found in advanced technology or military might. They needed something more, something deeper. They needed wisdom. Lyra suggested they seek out the nomadic traditionalists, a group of ancient wanderers who traveled the galaxy in search of forgotten knowledge and ancient wisdom. They were dismissed as superstitious by the Galactic Empire, but Lyra believed they held the key to understanding the architect's motives. "They speak to the stars," Lyra explained. "They listen to the whispers of the cosmos. They may know things that we cannot even imagine." Finding the nomadic traditionalists was no easy task. They were constantly on the move, traveling in hidden star lanes and forgotten corners of the galaxy. But with Lyra's guidance, the coalition eventually managed to locate their fleet of ancient, star-faring caravels. The leader of the nomadic traditionalists, Elder Elara, greeted them with a serene smile. She was an ancient woman, her face etched with the wisdom of centuries. Her eyes held a depth of knowledge that seemed to penetrate their very souls. "Welcome, travelers," Elara said, her voice soft but resonant. "We have been expecting you. The stars have told us of your journey." Eva explained their situation, describing the architect's trial and their struggle to survive. Elara listened patiently, her eyes closed. When Eva finished, she opened her eyes and smiled. The architect is not testing your strength, Elara said. It is testing your understanding. It is not looking for warriors. It is looking for wisdom. Elara explained that the architect was not simply trying to eliminate unworthy species. It was trying to find species that understood the interconnectedness of all things, species that could live in harmony with the universe. The architect believes that only species with true understanding can survive the challenges of the future, Elara said. Only species that can adapt, cooperate, and learn from the past can truly thrive. Elara shared with them the ancient knowledge of the nomadic traditionalists, teachings passed down through generations about the cycles of the cosmos, the interconnectedness of all life, and the importance of balance and harmony. She taught them how to listen to the whispers of the stars, how to sense the flow of energy through the universe, and how to understand the deeper meaning behind the architect's trials. The nomadic traditionalists' wisdom proved invaluable. It allowed the coalition to see the architect's trials in a new light, to understand the underlying principles that govern them, and to find solutions that they had never considered before. They learned that the architect was not simply trying to destroy them. It was trying to teach them. It was trying to force them to evolve, to become something greater than they were. Part 5, The Trial of Sacrifice. The architect's trials continued, each one more challenging than the last. The coalition faced dimensional rifts, ecological disasters, and impossible puzzles. But they persevered, drawing strength from their diverse skills, their unwavering determination, and their growing understanding of the architect's purpose. Finally, they arrived at the final trial. It was the most terrifying challenge they had faced yet. The architect presented them with a choice: sacrifice one member of their coalition to save the rest, or face complete annihilation. The choice was agonizing. How could they possibly choose one member of their alliance to die for the rest? They were a team, a family. They had come too far together to abandon each other now. But the architect was unrelenting. The pressure mounted, the threat of annihilation looming ever closer. The leaders of the coalition gathered to discuss their options. Eva, Zara, Lyra, and Elara met in the cramped conference room of the Stardust Drifter, their faces etched with worry and exhaustion. "We can't do this," Zara said, her voice trembling. "We can't sacrifice one of our own. But what choice do we have?" Lyra asked, her eyes filled with despair. "If we don't choose, we all die." "There has to be another way," Eva said, her mind racing. "The architect is testing us. It doesn't want us to simply make the obvious choice. It wants us to find a solution that defies its expectations." Elara nodded. "The architect is looking for wisdom, not obedience. It wants us to understand the true meaning of sacrifice." They spent hours brainstorming, poring over the ancient texts of the nomadic traditionalists, analyzing the dimensional anomalies of the scavengers, and seeking guidance from the empathic telepaths. Finally, Maya spoke up, her voice barely a whisper. What if the sacrifice doesn't have to be a person?" Everyone stared at her, confused. "The architect is testing us," Maya continued. "It wants to see if we are willing to sacrifice something to save the rest. But what if we can sacrifice something else entirely? Something abstract." She explained her idea. The architect was testing their capacity for selflessness, their willingness to give up something valuable for the greater good. What if they could sacrifice their individual desires, their personal ambitions, their ego? What if they could unite as one, completely selfless entity, dedicated to the survival of the whole? It was a radical idea, but it resonated with everyone. It was a way to defy the architect's expectations, to demonstrate their understanding of the interconnectedness of all things. They decided to try it. They gathered the entire coalition, humans, empaths, scavengers, and nomadic traditionalists, in the main hangar of the Stardust Drifter. They stood in a circle, holding hands, closing their eyes, and focusing their minds on a single thought: unity. Lyra, with her unparalleled telepathic abilities, acted as a conduit, amplifying their collective consciousness and projecting it towards the architect. They sacrificed their individual identities, their personal desires, their ego. They became one, a single, unified entity dedicated to the survival of the whole. The architect responded. The pressure lifted, the threat of annihilation receded. The architect had been defied. Part 6, The Architect's Verdict. A wave of energy washed over them, a feeling of profound understanding and acceptance. The architect had seen their sacrifice, had recognized their true worth. A voice echoed in their minds, a voice that resonated with the power of the cosmos. "You have proven yourselves," the architect said. "You have demonstrated the ability to adapt, cooperate, and understand the interconnectedness of all things. You have shown the true meaning of sacrifice. You are worthy." The architect's trial was over. The Kepler 186F system was safe. The coalition had survived. But more than that, they had evolved. They had become something greater than they were before. They had learned the true meaning of unity, the true meaning of sacrifice, and the true meaning of life. Epilogue: A New Dawn. The alliance forged in the crucible of the architect's trial spread throughout the galaxy. Inspired by the example of the Stardust Drifter and its unlikely crew, other species began to reach out to those on the fringes of society, forming new coalitions dedicated to cooperation, adaptability, and understanding. The Galactic Empire, humbled by its near destruction, began to reconsider its rigid hierarchies and its dismissive attitude towards those it deemed unworthy. It began to incorporate the principles of adaptability and cooperation into its own structure, recognizing that true strength lay not in dominance, but in unity. Eva Rostova and her crew became legendary figures, symbols of hope and resilience in a galaxy facing an uncertain future. The Stardust Drifter, once a battered freighter on the fringes of society, became a beacon of light, a testament to the power of the human spirit. Lyra and the empathic telepaths emerged from their isolation, sharing their gifts of foresight and understanding with the wider galaxy. Zara and the scavengers of the asteroid belt became sought-after experts in recycling and resource management, helping to build a more sustainable future. An elder Ilara and the nomadic traditionalists shared their ancient wisdom with all who were willing to listen, reminding them of the importance of balance, harmony, and respect for the cosmos. The galaxy had been judged, and it had been found worthy. Not because of its technological might, not because of its rigid order, but because of its capacity for adaptability, cooperation, and understanding. The architect's judgment had not been a sentence, but a test. And the galaxy had passed, not with flying colors, but with a hard-earned understanding of its true potential. A new dawn had broken, a dawn of unity, understanding, and hope. And at the heart of it all, was the unlikely alliance, forged in the fire of adversity, that had shown the galaxy the way forward. The unlikely alliance proved that true worthiness wasn't about adhering to a rigid standard, but about finding strength in diversity and embracing the boundless possibilities of collective ingenuity. The architect had sought to prune the galactic garden, but instead, it had inadvertently fertilized it, allowing a new, more resilient ecosystem of sentient life to flourish. The galaxy, though forever scarred by the experience, was ultimately stronger and more interconnected than before, ready to face whatever challenges the future might hold, together. The judgment had become a catalyst, and the unlikely alliance, its champion.